Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. My name is Evans Maponya. This lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery Center. You can post your question on this number 079 578 2908. That is the WhatsApp number. If you have anything that you want me to clarify, please post your questions on the number that I've just read out. It's 079 578 2908. Now, grade 12 learners, the knowledge area for discussion this afternoon, it's on domestic, regional, and international tourism. The topic under discussion is political situations and unforeseen occurrences of international significance. Political situations and unforeseen occurrences of international significance. I'm going to take you through the process to explain in detail the political situation as well as unforeseen occurrences that nations experience. The subtopic, as alluded to, is political situations and unforeseen occurrences. Right, grade 12 learners? This topic will be assessed in section E of your final examination paper. That is your question 9. And it is also assessed in section A, short questions. That is your question 1. It will also be assessed during controlled tests or formal tests, skills assessment tasks, during the PET administration, as well as in the preliminary examination, and of course, as we said, in the final examination, you will come across this topic. As we move on, let us establish what you as grade 12 learners need to know under this topic. Remember, the topic is political situation and unforeseen occurrences of international significance, of international importance. So these political situations and unforeseen occurrences will draw the entire universe. Everybody in countries of the world will be interested in this kind of situations that we are just about to discuss. So the concepts that you have to know by heart is or are what a political situation is and what an unforeseen occurrence is. You should be able, after having defined the two concepts, to list typical examples that you would associate with the concepts in question. That is your political situation and unforeseen occurrences. Examples of recent political situations, such as, these are the examples: civil war, acts of terrorism, as well as general unrest, or you might say strike. politics. These are examples of political situations. You also have, as you study this topic, look into the examples of unforeseen occurrences, such as, here are the examples. You have the tsunami, the earthquakes, and other natural disasters. This would also include issues like global recession, where economies of the countries are not coping, but we'll elaborate much as we discuss these concepts one by one. Also, diseases. You have diseases such as COVID-19. We'll look into also accidents, the general accidents, not only restricted to road accidents, but you refer to also accidents that happen in areas such as mining. You'll also give us an example, economic upset, where the economies of the countries are not coping. You give an example of a Zim dollar, which is next to nothing if you compare it to other currencies of the world. You are also expected here to only identify recent examples. Do not study the political situation and unforeseen occurrences as such. Don't get into finer details as to what this tsunami, as it happens, how it started, and so that information is for geographers, not for us. We want you to only mention it as an example and how it affects the movement of tourists around the world. I hope I am clear in that respect. In that the work schedule or the ATP demands you to only know examples of political situation and unforeseen occurrences, as we have mentioned the example as part of what you need to internalize or know. You are also expected to know and understand the impact of these situations and occurrences on international tourism and the economy of the affected countries. The guiding concept here is these political situations, these unforeseen occurrences must affect the whole world. Hence, we are looking at it at an international perspective. Our focus would be the economy of the country that is struck by civil wars, that is struck by diseases, that is affected by incidences of strike and general unrest, affected by terrorism. So those are the aspects that we look into and how they affect the economy of the country experiencing this political situation and unforeseen occurrences. Now, let's get into the matter, and we are going to elucidate, explore all the concepts that we've mentioned as part of what you need to know, one by one or one after the other. Now, the big question is, what are political situations? So in explaining political situation, one would say political situation refer to what is happening in politics of the country. It can be peaceful or unstable. So peaceful here, they refer to negotiations between governments or between political parties that form a particular government. We are saying it refers to what is happening in politics of the country. I'm going to take an example of the South African own situation. We had an election sometime last year, and during that election, as the constitution of the country, the ruling party must at least achieve 50 plus 1 of the votes. So all the political parties involved in that election did not manage 50% plus. And that led to a combination or what is known as a coalition government. So parties had to join forces to achieve the 50 plus 1 vote. And in our instance, we have seen the Democratic Alliance, which is the DA, joining forces with the African National Congress, the ANC, to lead the country. So such negotiations were political, so they involved politics in whose country? In our country. And it was a peaceful negotiation. And this peaceful negotiation affect the whole world, because other countries were looking at us as to what will happen in the country. So in some instances, this politics of the country may cause the country to be unstable. It may cause a disturbing factor to how the country is run, hence unstable. Right. As we further define the concepts, political situations also refers to events that are linked to the political circumstances within a country or a region. For example, civil war, and we'll reflect on some of the civil war that happened a couple of years ago in countries, especially in Africa. We'll have a reflection on that. It also involves acts of terrorism, protests, as well as violence against government, as well as bomb attacks. So these are examples of political situation that you need to know, and they should be helping you to define with example what political situations are. So it's just a political circumstance within a country or region, and a given example such as civil war, terrorism, protest, and violence act, as well as bomb attacks. Those are examples of political situation. Unforeseen occurrences. As in the case of political situation, you should be in a position to unpack this concept, to define this concept before you look into details, what you need to know about the unforeseen occurrences and how it affects people in countries of the world. So we don't study them in isolation. We don't only define them, but we need to give a relevant example and how it affects or impacts on the entire universe. So unforeseen occurrences refers to events that happen without any warning, such as earthquakes and natural disasters. You don't plan for them to occur. You don't prepare yourself. they only strike at any given time. Unforeseen occurrences, as we further explain it, would be events that are unpredictable and unexpected and cannot be stopped by any means. You cannot stop them from happening. So such occurrences, such natural processes, you cannot prevent them from happening. And they don't inform you that they will be happening. So hence they are referred to as unforeseen. So if we had seen or if we had established that they will happen, then we'll prepare for them, and they may not be as disastrous as they normally become. Examples of recent political situation. We'll start by explaining the nature of example by saying a tourist perception of political instability and safety in a country will affect their decision about whether or not to travel there. I mean, you cannot travel to a country that is attributed by strike, that is attributed by riots. So for your own safety, then you have to make a decision to travel or not. And the best way is to decide not to travel to countries that are unstable for the safety of your life. Right. We'll explain the political situation one by one. Those examples that we alluded to in the definition. The first one is a civil war. A civil war, or the word civil, refers to people of a country. It's a Latin word referring to people of a country. A civil war is a war between opposing groups or citizens of the same country. People living in one country or residing in one country are fighting against each other in the case of a civil war. Civil wars have recently occurred in Libya, in Egypt, in Somalia, and in Kenya. So this is an example in the picture of an incident of civil war. Myanmar civil war has been projected here. The picture represents Myanmar civil war and the negotiations towards finding a breakthrough or sitting around the table. So this is the picture just to explain what happened in one of the country where people of the same nation were fighting against one another. The second example of a political situation is terrorism. Terrorism, if we are to explain it, refers to the use of violent act or to use force to achieve a political goal. To achieve your political aim, you need force. You use violent means to force people to identify with you. And that is referred to as terrorism, as one of the examples of political situation. The most significant terrorist attacks in recent years was the September 11. September 11 that was an attack on the World Trade Center in New York in the United States of America. As you can see, the Twin Towers here in the picture have been attacked. Here is a small picture of a flight that caused the whole scenario. In 2001, the date was the 11th of September, where an act of terrorism was recorded or registered. And the United States of America, and in particular the city of New York, falling a victim. Another example of a political situation are the general unrest. So in explaining what an unrest is, one would say it's an uneasy or troubled condition. General unrest in Zimbabwe has stopped almost all of the tourism into that country. So an example here is given, that of Zimbabwe, where the nation was torn into pieces by warring political parties. Two political parties wanted to gain power. So the tourism in that country was put to a halt, was stopped because of this general unrest. So as you can see on the pictures, what an unrest looks like, the pictures clearly depict some kind of situation happening in our own country, where we normally do service protest, service levels, if we are not satisfied about them, like electricity, provision of water, and these are some of the acts that we engage on. We barricade the roads with burning tires. As you can see, the demonstration here expressing their dissatisfaction about service level. And this, of course, in Zimbabwe happened in 2021, where we had a protest and socio-political unrest. This one depicts the situation in our country in 2021, where different malls were looted. So, yeah, we know about this kind of political issues, political situations, as it happened before our eyes in our country in a couple of years or some couple of months ago. So that is one such example of a general unrest. Now, those are your examples of political situation. If one has to recap, we have alluded to the general unrest, which are your strikes. We have also alluded to acts of terrorism and many more. So now the focus here is on examples of unforeseen occurrences or unforeseen circumstances. So the first one for our discussion is a natural disaster, or let's start off by defining a natural disaster, which is an event caused by forces of nature, such as a tornado, and can cause huge destruction. So as you can see here, this is an example of a tornado. It was approaching early Manitoba in Canada. So this is one of the tornadoes experienced in Canada. So we don't have to get into detail, but just list it as an example, and let's know how to define a natural disaster. As we move on with natural disasters or unforeseen occurrences, on the list we also have tsunamis. A tsunami is a series of a very large ocean wave caused by an underwater earthquake or a volcanic eruption, which cause damage to infrastructure, buildings, attraction, ports, coastline, as well as beaches. As you can see, the formulation of this tsunami, and there are houses here taken far from your picture, and this side, here are the results. Here is, it depicts how a country is left looking like after experiencing a tsunami. So it causes massive destruction. And the most affected regions are the ones that are on the coastline. So the coastline, we refer to areas that are adjacent the ocean, next to the sea. That is your Durban, your Cape Town. Those are coastline areas. And if they are struck by a tsunami, this is how they look like after this unforeseen occurrence. As we move further, another unforeseen occurrence that torments people is an earthquake. In defining or explaining an earthquake, one would say it's a sudden and violent shaking of the ground caused by movements within the Earth's crust or volcanic activity that can cause great destruction. As you can see here, this building is brought to the ground, and it is alongside the Syrian Republic and in Turkey. So as you can see here, a plea for donations. So this is how people are left homeless. Most of them were killed during the earthquake. As you can see, rescuers here are searching under the wreckage the surviving bodies, and they are trying to find those who are dead as well. So this is how severe the earthquake can be. As we further move with examples of unforeseen occurrences, we have the issue of global recession. Global recession refers to a period of general economic decline around the world and has a direct impact on tourism demand because people have less disposable income to spend. People have very little money or income to spend on their needs and wants. So the value of the currency drops drastically in such a way that people cannot afford the products and services. Another example of an unforeseen occurrence, which most of us are familiar with, it happened during your time, during a period of time when you were born and most of you were attending school by then. So with this pandemic, the COVID-19, we refer to diseases that are of abnormal condition, which interrupt the normal bodily function, leading to feeling of pain and weakness. So diseases or pandemic refers to a normal condition which interrupts, which disturbs the normal bodily function, leading to feeling of pain and weakness. And eventually, people can lose their life out of diseases and pandemic. Diseases and pandemics such as COVID-19, these are your example of pandemic and diseases, malaria, yellow fever, and most recently you have your bird flu, swine flu. Not only make traveling fearful of visiting certain areas. So with this kind of diseases, people have that fear to visit different destinations because they fear to contract these diseases. So as soon as a country is declared or is affected by these diseases, then it attracts less and less people or tourists, because people want to be safe of these diseases because they are very dreadful. They can kill you at any time. Another example of unforeseen occurrence, it's accident. But here we are not only referring to road accident, air transport accident included, the sinking ships also would fall in this category, where you have transport accidents that can have a negative impact on tourist numbers as they affect safety image of the destination. So if a country is characterized by a massive number of accidents, then it is regarded as an unsafe destination for the tourists. As we move further, we'll look into the concept of economic upset. Tourism establishments such as hotels and tourist attraction can experience economic upset when they have financial trouble or difficulty as a result of low visitor numbers. So places such as hotels, such as your attractions, if they do not generate enough profit out of tourist visits, they become in an awkward position to sustain their daily business. Isn't it? You have to use money to gain more money. You have to give service, and your services, you'd have to purchase those services in the form of workers that you employ. But if you fail to pay your workers, then the whole industry is dealt a blow. So if the fewer the tourists, then the lesser the businesses in the tourism industry are to sustain their businesses. Now, we have looked into examples of political situations as well as unforeseen occurrences. Now, moving forward, we need to assess the impact of political situation and unforeseen occurrences on international tourism and economy of the affected country. We need to look at this impact in association with their impact or how they affect international tourism. International tourism is the key word here for the impact. It's not only national that we are concerned about, but on an international scale, how it affects travelers across the globe. And also, it is not on the part of the tourist or tourism only, but how the economy of countries gets affected and how this political situation affect the economy of the country where it is happening. All right? The impact of reduced tourism on a country's economy can be disastrous, and it may lead to increased unemployment, homelessness, deflation. Deflation here refers to the value of money. The value of the currency will drop drastically. It encourages issues such as criminal activities, which is our crime here, and other social economic problems. So if a country experiences either a political situation or an unforeseen occurrence, the result would be unemployment, homelessness, or with unemployment you can say also joblessness, or people will lose their jobs. It will also lead to people not having homes. It will lead to the drop in the value of the currency. It also leads to crimes or criminal activities, as well as other social and economic problems. This is one of the major blows that is associated with political situation and unforeseen occurrences. As we further assess the impact of political situation and unforeseen occurrences on an international scale, I want to emphasize the level at which a political situation and unforeseen occurrences affect the entire universe. And also in association with how it affects the economy of the country experiencing such situations, such occurrences. So if a country is affected or dominated by a political situation or unforeseen occurrences, travelers who have already booked may cancel their trips. So it will lead to cancellation of bookings. Tourists who haven't yet booked trips to affected areas delay their booking. They want to see how the situation is normalized, or how that kind of situation is kept. Or instead of visiting such countries which is affected by a political situation or unforeseen occurrences, they may choose to go elsewhere where there are no incident of political situation, where there are no issues of unforeseen occurrences. Tour operators avoid booking trips to affected countries. Airlines suspend their flights to affected areas. And all this, if you look at all this, it will result into a low economic activity. So the economy of not only the country affected, but also service providers like tour operators, airlines become affected because they will be selective in picking up or booking destinations for tourists. So these are some of the impacts. And before we get into activities, I want us to take a 5 minutes break, and when we bounce back, we'll try and link the discussion with the activity. We are going to pause for 5 minutes, and when we come back, we'll look at how this topic is assessed in the final examination. Grade 12s, welcome back. Remember, if you have any question, please post your question to this WhatsApp number 079 578 2908. Now, just to bear in mind that the content that we've discussed involves political situations and unforeseen occurrences at an international scale, and how it impacts on tourism as well as the economy of the affected countries. So we have given examples of political situations, and so we have done with unforeseen occurrences as well, and we have looked into how they impact international tourism and how it also impacts the economy of the affected country. Now, it's now time to test our knowledge on the topic that we have discussed. Remember, you don't have to study these examples in detail. You just have to know examples of political situation and how they look like. You also have to know the example of the unforeseen occurrences. But most importantly is to assess how they impact international tourism and the economy of the affected country. Those are the three things that you have to know. Now let's look into these activities. I have a set of activities prepared for you, and they are derived from the past national exam question papers. And as we said, you can see here it's 9.2. It means you'll come across these questions in question 9. In question 9, the 9.2 here represents the instruction, but the first 9 here indicates the question where all this will be coming from. Right. 9.2 from one of the past question paper, it says, read the news article below and answer the questions that follow. South African floods, at least 11 people die after severe floods in the Western Cape. That happened on the 27th September 2023. So here is a picture. I'm hopeful that you are able to see what is happening here. You can see the car here cannot cross this road because it's flooded. Yeah, transport here from one point to another becomes difficult, or traveling from one point across the bridge or across the river, it becomes an issue due to flooding. Remember, flooding will be an example of an unforeseen occurrence. Floods fall into the category of unforeseen occurrence. Right, let's get into the matter. It says, as I read, at least 11 people have been killed after heavy rain and winds hit South Africa's Western Cape province, including Cape Town, over the weekend of 27 September 2023, leaving a trail of destruction. Authorities warned that the number of deaths may rise as floodwaters subside or become less. Rescue teams were still searching for people who were feared to be trapped and cannot get out in their partially, not fully submerged underwater home. So that is the scenario or the extract that you were expected to read with understanding. Here are the questions. It says, choose the correct term from the brackets below to complete the statement that follows. Floods are an example of a political situation or unforeseen occurrence for 2 marks. 9.2.2, floods are seen as one of the factors discouraging tourists from visiting a place. Discuss one impact of floods on each of the following. International tourism, economy of the affected country. So in our discussion of the topic, I emphasized the impact on international tourism, and I have also emphasized on the economy of the affected country. So you need to separate the impact on the two aspects, international tourism and economy of the affected country, for 2 marks each. So it means you are going to give at least one fact on each of these to get these 4 marks. Right, let's zoom into the answers. You are expected to choose the correct term from the brackets to complete a statement. You were expected to indicate whether floods are political situations or unforeseen occurrence. And political situation would fall off, and the correct answer is unforeseen occurrence. So it doesn't knock, it doesn't prepare you, it just happened. 9.2.2, floods are seen as one of the factors discouraging people from visiting a place. So you were expected to discuss one impact of floods on each of the following. The first one being international tourism, and the second one being against the economy of the affected country. Now, here are your answers. International visitors number will decline, so people visiting that country will drop, or the number of tourists visiting such a country will drop. It will lead to cancellation of trips or flights. Tourists will be afraid to visit the affected area. Outbreak of disease may prevent people from traveling. Floods are associated with waterborne diseases such as cholera. So an area affected by floods is likely to have waterborne disease, and such breakout may lead to or may prevent people from visiting. Tourists will look for alternative destinations that are safer. So you cannot go to a place where your life is at risk. Rather, you'll have to visit other safe areas of the world. There will be a negative media attention. So media or the paparazzi will give negative report, further scaring tourists from visiting that country. So they will report negative about the country affected by floods, thus scaring tourists from visiting a place that is affected by floods. So any of these answers, the first or the A part of the question, which is on international tourism, the impact of floods on international tourism. Now let's examine the impact of floods on the economy of the affected country. So here are the answers. The economy of the affected country will experience loss of foreign income. So if people are not visiting, or if international tourists are not visiting a flood-affected area, it means such an area or such a city, such a country will lose foreign income. They will lose foreign money because tourists will not visit such an affected area. People will lose jobs or loss of job for employed people in the tourism industry. So people employed or people working in the hotels, in the transport sector will lose their jobs because of the limited number of tourists visiting such a country. Higher unemployment. So if people lose their job, it means they will add up to the already big number of people who are not employed. Renovation to be done will cost a large amount of money. So to repair all the damages needs a lot of money. So the economy becomes affected because they have to spend on repairing and renovating the damaged infrastructure. A weakened economy, so the economy will be weak. It might take a long time for such affected economy to recover. Tourism businesses can close down or can shut down. So if there is no activity in our business, it means we have to close down our shops. So if people, you run a business and people are not coming, are not visiting, are not coming to buy goods and services, eventually you'll have to close down. Less spending on tourism products and services. Tourists will shorten their stay with a lower expenditure. So tourists will not stay for a long time. They will just come and stay a few days and leave. And this leads to a negative multiplier effect. I hope you know what a multiplier effect is, where money generated from tourists filter down to other sectors of the economy. Isn't it people work in the tourism industry, they get salaries and wages from the tourist spend, and they further spend to satisfy their own needs and wants by buying food and groceries, by using the money for transport. So money generated in tourism does not remain within the tourism sector, but it's spent in other sectors of the economy. That is a multiplier effect. So if there are no tourists, the multiplier effect will be negative, will be negated. So those are the effects or the impact of floods to the economy of the affected country. Sorry. Let's move to another activity, also coming from the national question paper, and it's also an extract of question 9. It says, study the extract below and answer the questions that follow. The first one involves floods, and this one involves a hurricane or a hurricane. So Hurricane Otis causes catastrophic damage in Acapulco in Mexico. So the Mexican beach resort of Acapulco before the hurricane looked like this. It was as beautiful like this. And after the hurricane, it looked like this. As you can see, the wreckage, the building has collapsed. And you can imagine the number of deaths to be counted. So let's read through the scenario. On October 25, 2023, Hurricane Otis swept through the beach resort of Acapulco, causing extensive damage as it battered the southern Pacific coast with heavy rain and strong winds. The storm rapidly intensified, with wind speed increasing by 215 kilometers per hour within 24 hours, giving little time for the city, more than 1 million residents, to prepare for its arrival. The hurricane's sustained or continued winds peaked at 265 kilometers per hour. You can imagine the speed as to which this gusty wind was moving. Here are the questions. Complete the sentence by filling in the missing word. Hurricane Otis is classified as A or N. 9.1.2, describe how Hurricane Otis affected the infrastructure of Acapulco by giving specific example of the damage caused. I'm sure you can still recall the two pictures before and after Acapulco experienced the Hurricane Otis. 9.1.3, evaluate the economic, can you see here, economic consequences, the economic impact of Hurricane Otis in the tourism sector in Acapulco. The impact to the tourism sector in Acapulco. So these are your questions. Let's look into the answers. 9.1.1, if you were to complete this sentence, Hurricane Otis can be classified as an unforeseen occurrence or a natural disaster. One of the two suffice for 2 marks. 9.1.2, describe how Hurricane Otis affected the infrastructure of Acapulco by giving specific example of the damage caused. Right, here are the answers. Hotels and buildings along the coast suffered structural damage, with roof torn off, windows blown out, and walls collapse. So this is how you give example of the damage caused. So you can see from the previous building or the previous picture how Acapulco looked like and after the storm. So you can just explain what the situation is like, and that will give you 2 marks. Roads were blocked by fallen trees, debris, making transportation difficult. So it was difficult for transport to move in that beach because it was severely caused damage to the roads. Trees had fallen across the streets. The debris, all materials that were transported by water, blocked the roads, thus making transportation very difficult. The power lines were damaged, so there was no electricity. Communication networks were disrupted, so it was very difficult to communicate by phone to people living around the area. So these are some of your answers. Please pay particular detail to the allocation of marks. The question was asked and it says 2 times 2. It means you have to give 2 facts for this question to get all the 4 marks. So it's 2 marks per question. So as you can see from our marking guideline, here is the first 2 and here is the second 2. And these are some of the answers that will be accepted apart from the first 2. 9.1.3, it says, or you were required to evaluate the economic consequences of Hurricane Otis to the tourism sector in Acapulco. So here are the economic consequences, because people were not visiting Acapulco again because the hotel was damaged. So it led to closure of hotels, beaches, other tourist infrastructure due to the widespread damage caused by the hurricane. A decline in tourist arrival leads to revenue losses for hotels, restaurants, tour operators, and other businesses dependent on tourism. Retrenchment of employees, that is job losses due to damaged infrastructure. Negative impact on income earning for people of Acapulco. The multiplier effect will be negatively affected due to fewer tourists visiting the beach resort. I think I've explained what a negative multiplier effect means or looks like. As we further assess the question, a decline in foreign tourist arrival to Acapulco will result in decreased foreign income. Decline in domestic and foreign exchange earning due to decrease in visitors' numbers. Decrease in the GDP, that is your gross domestic product contribution. There will be a prolonged period of zero tourism activities until infrastructure has been rebuilt. So it will take long for tourism business to start operating again, because they will be rebuilding and repairing the damaged infrastructure. The negative publicity surrounding the hurricane's impact will deter potential visitors from choosing Acapulco as their holiday destination due to concern about safety and infrastructure damage. Cancellation of bookings due to damaged infrastructure. Those are possible answers to evaluation of economic consequences caused by Hurricane Otis. So again, pay particular attention here. It says 3 by 2 is equals to 6, meaning that you have to give 3 facts to answer this question. Any of the given ones here on the marking guideline are correct. So let's look into one more activity. It says study the newspaper article below and answer the question that follow. It says faraway conflict, local consequences, how the war in Ukraine will affect South Africa's tourism industry. So let's go through the extract or the scenario. As you can see here, it's a picture of a soldier carrying a child or trying to rescue a child from fighting soldiers or fighting troops. So the child was caught in the battlefield and the soldier had to come to the child's rescue. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine may seem far away. However, it has serious consequences for South Africa and country's tourism industry. Increases in the price of crude oil will result in higher fuel prices for South Africa, who are in the business of delivering goods and transporting people. Russia and Ukraine are both major producers of wheat. They supply a third of South Africa's wheat, a key ingredient for making bread. The international wheat price has increased because of limited supply. That is our scenario. And then let's look into questions. Again here, as you can see, the pattern is question number 9. It says, choose the correct word from this given in bracket. Russia and Ukraine are both located in the southern or northern hemisphere. That is the first question. Identify from the extract 2 impacts that the war between Russia and Ukraine has on South Africa. 9.3. The impacts identified in question 9.1.2 will further inconvenience inbound international tourists to South Africa. Discuss 3 ways in which the travel needs of inbound international tourists will be negatively affected during their stay in South Africa. Let's look at possible answers. Choose the correct word from this given in brackets. Russia and Ukraine are both located in the northern or southern hemisphere. The correct answer, they are both located in the northern hemisphere. 9.2.2, identify from the extract 2 impacts that the war between Russia and Ukraine has on South Africa. So the petrol price, that is the first one. The fuel price will go up, or high fuel prices, high petrol prices, increase in the price of crude oil. So these are some of the consequences South Africa will suffer from these 2 warring nations. Will also experience limited, if not at all, supply of wheat the increase in bread prices, as well as availability of wheat, or there will be a shortage of wheat that the country South Africa will experience. 9.1.3, the impacts identified in question 9.1.2 will further inconvenience inbound international tourists to South Africa. You are expected to discuss 3 ways in which the travel needs of inbound international tourists will be negatively affected during their stay in South Africa. So also pay particular attention to the mark allocation. 3 times 2 equals to 6, meaning that you have to explain or to answer the question by giving 3 facts, 2 marks each. Increased petrol prices, these are now the impacts. The increase in petrol prices will make long distance travel expensive and unaffordable. So if you are traveling long distances, you need to use a lot of petrol. And if the petrol price goes up, the transport industry also will adjust their prices or their fares up. So with the petrol of increase, you'll see the increase in fares, the increase more especially long distance travel, which will become a burden to travelers. Car hire will be less popular option because the cost of petrol, bus, shuttle, taxi industry will bear the consequences, will suffer high ticket prices, and there will eventually be less availability of fuel. Availability, frequency, cancellation, and increased cost of flights and other form of transport will be affected. So all this would answer question 9.1.3 on the travel needs of inbound international tourists. Another activity. So you can see here is our question 9. It starts with 9.1. It says study the information below taken from TBCAS COVID-19 protocols for tourism industry and answer the questions that follow. Here there is a mistake. As you can note, it has to be TBCSA, Tourism Business Council of South Africa. That is